I'd like to welcome you to Germany, right here at the center of Europe. And it seems that whether people have historically been traveling east-west or north-south, this place right here has been the crossroads of Europe, right in the middle of it all. Now fast forward to the Cold War. World War II is finished. Germany is occupied by the victorious powers, and specifically or especially by the Soviet Union on the eastern side of Germany, and the United States along with Britain and France on the western half of Germany. And as those powers became more antagonistic toward each other, as that Cold War started to heat up, the eastern and western sides of Germany became a very contentious borderland, and the Fulda Gap happened to find itself right along that east-west German border. And the Soviet Union did actually have plans for how World War III would be won on their side. The Soviet plan was known as 7 days to the River Rhine. And the idea is that they would concentrate their attack in two areas: the North German Plain, which is a large area, very easy to traverse, and of course the second point or second concentration of their attack would be right through this place here, the very narrow Fulda Gap. And 7 days to the River Rhine had at its goal to reach the Rhine River and to essentially occupy Germany up to the Rhine River by the 7th day of that theoretical Soviet attack. An attack that never actually came, but both sides were, I think, quite convinced that the other side was interested in starting a World War III. This is known in German as a Kolonnenweg, and basically it's what the East German border guards would use to drive their little vehicles along when they were patrolling this very very tense border area. And along this eastern edge, you can see an example here of one of the guard dogs that they would have had along this narrow strip of land, patrolling the eastern side, watching for anyone trying to escape to the west. Essentially a chain that connected it up to a guide wire up here, and it was only allowed to essentially travel in this very narrow little area. Hopefully you can see back there, that's an original East German border guard tower, one of two types that they would have had here along this inter-German border during the Cold War. And now that we've seen one of those, and you saw the Kolonnenweg that they would drive their little patrol vehicles along, as well as the dog. He's kind of a favorite of mine. Let's go see what they have on the western side of this former Cold War border, what the American Army was working with at a place called Point Alpha. And what you can see back there, that is an observation tower formerly run by the US military, known as Point Alpha, and that was one of the points along this Fulda Gap and that former inner German border where American soldiers would be on the watch, on the lookout for the beginnings of World War III. And this whole area would have been just absolutely devastated had that war actually occurred. Nobody in that observation tower would have survived had they not evacuated quite quickly, because most likely nuclear weapons, especially sort of battlefield tactical nukes, would likely have been used in this area in quite a concentrated fashion. This tower, Point Alpha, was built in 1985 to replace an older tower that was here. And on the American side, about the best that could have been hoped for in the event of a Soviet attack and World War III would essentially be to delay and to try to turn the Fulda Gap into one big traffic jam for the Soviets. and to try to wait for reinforcements to arrive into some of the transportation hubs in and around Frankfurt. And the idea was that if they could stop the Soviet military at the Rhine River, that probably would have considered to be about a draw in a World War III scenario. And at best, probably the American military could have hoped to try to defend Frankfurt and its air base. Don't know if you can see inside that window, but that's the inside part of the tower. There's some helmets and radios in there. We'll go all the way up to the highest observation point here. It sounds like they've got kind of a recorded presentation going on. So I'll stop talking and we'll just get a look at those low areas. Maybe you can imagine massive Soviet army attacking down through these very fertile low areas.